Welcome to my channel. This is the Nikon F401, also called the N4004 in the United States. Compared to other cameras you can buy for the same price, I'd say you can do much better. You can buy this model on eBay for between £25 and £35. That's $35 to $47. Whereas I bought a Canon EOS 300V for £14 and a Nikon F55 for £16, or a Nikon F801S for only £22. The F401 is expensive, and I would have thought that the minimal specification would have been reflected in the price by now. Loading film is the same as for most Nikon autofocus cameras of this period. You just push this down, the back comes open, you put the film cassette in there, pull the leader across to here, and then close it. Then you have to press the shutter to advance to the first frame. If you want to see a video of that, then have a look at my Nikon F801 video, and that'll show you how you load the film. When you finish the film, the shutter locks, and you have to rewind by pulling that slider across and pressing that down at the same time, and the film will rewind until you see the letter S in the frame counter just there. How do you turn the camera on? Well, you move this dial away from L. L stands for lock, and when it's off of lock, the camera's functioning. Starting at the top right, you can see the shutter release. Half pressing the shutter will focus the lens. A full press will fire the shutter. The F401 uses the Nikon F mount, which gives you a very wide range of lenses to choose from. You need to use the AF or the AFD versions of the Nikon F mount lenses if you want all of the metering and focusing functionality. Pre-AF lenses like this 50mm macro will fit, but you won't get any metering functionality or any autofocus. You'll have to use a separate light meter and use manual. If you use AFS lenses, then you'll be able to meter and have all the automatic functionality, but you won't be able to autofocus. I'd recommend that you check Ken Rockwell's page on the mad and crazy Nikon camera and lens compatibility story to see what works with each version of the F-mount. Always set an AF or AFD lens to the smallest aperture. You then set aperture and shutter speed using the dials on the top. These can be quite hard to see if your eyesight isn't that good. Setting the shutter speed dial to A gives aperture priority automatic, where you set the aperture and the camera sets the shutter speed for you. If you set the aperture dial to S, then you have shutter priority, where you set the shutter speed and the camera sets the aperture for you. If you set both dials to the automatic setting, that's setting A on the shutter speed dial and S on the aperture dial, then you have programmed automatic exposure, where the camera sets both the aperture and the shutter speed. Move both of the dials off of the automatic settings and you've got full manual control of aperture and shutter speed. On the left of the top plate is the self-timer button. Here is the built-in flash, which measures the exposure through the lens. This is the focus control. You can have either autofocus or manual focus, where you focus the lens yourself. As is usual with autofocus cameras of this period, there's only one focus point in the center of the screen, and it's single shot autofocus. This very useful button here is not a depth of field preview button, it's an auto exposure lock. So if you've got a subject that has a very bright background, you can go up close to the subject, lock the exposure, and then come back and recompose and take the picture, and you'll make sure you get the correct exposure for the subject. Through the viewfinder, a green dot shows if the lens has been able to focus on the subject in the center of the viewfinder. The focus light will also confirm focus when you manually focus with any Nikon F-mount lens. If lighting conditions are low, you can fit a Nikon speed light if you want an illuminator light for autofocus. The cheapest would be the SB20, which is about £20 to £25 on eBay. On the bottom of the camera is the tripod mount, and here's the battery compartment. You can see it takes 4 AA batteries. That's very convenient because they're very easy to buy in most supermarkets. Now for the downsides of the F401. The viewfinder gives incredibly little information about exposure, just 3 red lights which convey over, under or correct exposure. So in aperture priority mode you will have no idea what shutter speed has been chosen. A light does come on if the shutter speed is slow enough for you to get camera shake, but that's all you get. The exposure triangle comprises shutter speed, aperture and ISO. These dials show shutter speed and aperture, but where's the ISO setting? If you use faster film, you'll often choose to overexpose it a little to reduce grain in the shadows. And some films, like Ilford Delta 3200, are probably more like 1250 ISO than 3200. But all you get with the F401 is DX coding from the film cartridge. You can see the contacts just here. There is no manual ISO setting, and there are no easy workarounds as there's no exposure compensation control and no viewfinder information showing how much you've over or underexposed the film, which is available with later cameras such as the F60. This is the conclusion, where I try to be positive about the camera, but I have to be honest, I'm disappointed with the F401. Core functionality has been removed. Who would want an aperture priority mode with no indication of the shutter speed chosen by the camera? And no convenient way or workaround to set a different ISO for the film that you're using. I think that a beginner buying an SLR camera would be extremely disappointed when they advance to doing more complex types of photography. I hope you enjoyed this video more than I enjoyed the camera. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Happy shooting, and I'll see you next time.